My name is Jamie Ressler. This year I had the privilege of playing General Naaman. General Naaman was a Syrian army general. He was the commander of all the Syrian armies. The Syrian army at that time was, if not the most powerful in the world, one of the most powerful in the world. So a guy that was one of the most powerful people in the world, and someone that was not immune to having bad things happen to him. And so in the portrayal, we learn about how he got knocked down and what had to happen for him to get back up. So the first year that Surprise Church did Faces of Easter, I was sitting in church one Sunday, and one of the announcement slides said that they were looking for volunteers and actors to take on roles. And as someone that used to do a lot of acting in high school and college, life had gotten in the way, and I hadn't been able to do that for quite a long time. And I looked at my wife and I said, "I think I want to do that." And she goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And so the very first year, I took on the character of Jonah, got swallowed by a whale and spit back out. It went really well, and I got to play Simon Peter at our Good Friday service. And it was just, it was such a cool pick-me-up. And so the next year, it wasn't asking Jamie if he was available. It was, "Jamie, you're playing this role." And so I got to play Noah and build the ark and save humanity from itself. And then, again, I got to play a Good Friday role of a thief on a cross. And so it's been a really cool experience learning about all these characters, because as someone that attends church regularly and has a fairly strong faith background, a lot of these characters are people I don't know of or don't know of as well until I get these scripts and I read them and I learn about them. And it's not only allowed me to expand my own knowledge about these characters, but expand my own faith background, because I learn what made these people better. And I hope that I take a little bit of each of those learnings and impart it to myself and my family and become a better person because of it. Have you ever been humbled, brought low by life or suffering in a way that made you question everything? My name is Naaman. I was the commander of Syria's armies. Syria was a mighty nation back in the time of Israel's kings, about 850 years before the coming of Christ. Syria's king, King Ben-Hadad, put me in charge of the military, a military that rivaled any in the world at that time. It was one thing to be a soldier in a powerful army. It was the ultimate high. But it was something else altogether to command it. Can you imagine being able to send 100,000 highly trained warriors into battle with just a wave of your hand? It almost made you feel like, well, like you were a god. King Ben-Hadad was looking to expand his territories westward into Israel. We've been involved in constant skirmishes with them. As it so happened, we had some raiding parties out to harass the Israelites. And one of these parties came across a young Israeli girl that they captured and brought to me for a wife. Now, I didn't get down on one knee. I didn't even ask her to marry me. When you're the commander of the armies of Syria, you didn't ask anyone for anything, unless you were talking to the king. But over time, we grew to care for one another. And she somehow embraced me as her husband. And I was kind to her. It was she that first noticed something wrong with my skin one morning as I was putting my uniform on. "Husband," she called out. "Naaman, there's something on your back. Something doesn't look right in your skin. She came closer. I hope it isn't Hope it isn't what? I called back to her impatiently. Nothing. I'm sure it's nothing, she said. But it wasn't nothing. Soon my skin began turning pale as snow, paling and flaking away. I developed bleeding sores and lesions that were constantly irritated and itching. It was hell, and it was humbling. Leprosy. As the commander of the armies of Syria, I was used to people looking at me a certain way. When I would go walking down the street and they'd walk by me, they'd go, "Look, there's Naaman. He's in command of the armies." Now, it was something altogether different. Now it was looks of disgust and pity. It was, "Look, there's Naaman, the pathetic leper." My king thought very highly of me, and he said he would spare no expense in trying to find a cure. He brought in healers and magicians from all over Syria. But alas, they could do nothing for me. I was getting worse each and every day, and these clowns were useless. I started to lose hope. My wife hated to see me suffer. One day she told me of a man from her homeland in Israel that she heard could cure me. When I told my king about this man, he insisted that I must go and find him. "I will write a letter to the king of Israel," he said. He scrawled out a letter to Israel's king Jehoram. "With this letter, I send you my servant Naaman, so that you may cure him of his leprosy." With that letter, we packed up hundreds of pounds of gold and silver to go along as well. Treasure to barter for my healing. Syria was the more mighty of the nations between Syria and Israel. And I was not going there to bend my knee to the king of Israel or to bow down to the God of Israel. The God that I worshipped was named Hadad Rahman, the storm god. Archaeologists have found statues of Hadad Rahman with bull's horns on his head, a club in one hand, and a thunderbolt in the other. We trusted Hadad Rahman for the big things, to send down a storm to water our lands and our crops, not so much for the little things like healing. So I was on my way to make a business deal with an insignificant nation and its insignificant God. Treasure for healing. Nothing more, nothing less. A fair deal. When I presented my letter to Israel's king Jehoram, he panicked. "Who does this man think that I am? Does he think that I'm God? Does he think that I can kill and bring back to life? Then why would he send me this man to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to start a quarrel with me?" As King Jehoram tore his robes, the man my wife had heard of, the prophet named Elijah, heard of my letter, and he sent word to his king. "Why do you tear your robes in distress? Send this man to me so that he will know that there is a prophet in Israel." Finally, someone with enough common sense to accept our deal. We packed up our horses and our chariots, and we made our way to this Elijah's home. Once there, we unpacked a small bounty of our treasure that we'd be bartering for the healing and made our way up to the door. I knocked, and a servant answered. I asked for Elijah. The servant left and came back a short time later. Not with Elijah, though, but with a message from him. "Tell this man to go and wash himself 7 times in the Jordan, and his flesh will be healed, and he will be cleansed." Wait, what? My hand immediately went to the butt of my sword. Must be some kind of insult. I've come all this way with all this treasure, and instead of him coming down to meet me, he sends me this nobody's servant? I expected this Elijah to come to me, to call upon the name of the Lord, his God, wave his hand over the spot that I stood, and cure me of this leprosy. But no, he sends this whoever servant, and he tells me to go wash myself in the Jordan? That pathetic stream of sheep piss they call a river? We have mighty rivers in Syria, mightier than any in Israel. This man was trying to mock me. It was everything I could do not to kill him right then and there. As rage built over me, my servant called out, "Father, if this man had asked you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he asks you to wash and be cleansed?" He had a good point. I hated it when that happened. If Elijah had asked me to slay a great beast, I of course would have done it. So why not do this small thing, especially after traveling so far? So we made our ways to the banks of the Jordan. I stripped nude and made my way into that dirty creek bed. It was humiliating. I felt like I was hitting bottom, both figuratively and literally. Even at the deepest part of the Jordan, it was only knee deep, so that to submerge myself, I had to go all the way down onto my stomach. I got up and started trudging my way back to the shoreline. And my servant called out, "Remember to do it 7 times. You've got to be kidding me. Like a pouting child, I stomped my feet a few times, said some choice words that are best not to be repeated in this company, turned around, went back out into the middle, assumed the position 6 more embarrassing times. After the 7th time, I again got up. I again made my way back to the shore. And my servant again called out to me, Your skin! It's better! The leprosy is gone!" I was in no mood to be joked with at a time like this. "Have you been drinking this foul water?" I mocked him. But then I looked down at my arms, my legs. No longer were they pale, peeling, or bleeding. The lesions and spots were gone. All that remained was fresh skin, like that of a young boy. It was unbelievable. I was healed. I hurriedly put my clothes back on, and we made our way back to Elijah's home. I ran up to the door and knocked. When Elijah came, I told him, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except here in Israel. So please, accept a gift from your servant." But Elijah refused. He said, "As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will accept nothing. No matter what I said or did would convince him otherwise." Evidently, there was no bartering with this God. But I had one more request. If you will not accept these, then please let me, your servant, be given as much dirt as 2 mules can carry. For your servant will never again make any burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other god but the Lord. I know that sounds weird, but listen. I had to go back to Syria, and I wanted to take this God with me. And so the only thing I could think of was that to take a little bit of Israel back to Syria with me, so that when I knelt down and prayed to Israel's God, I'd be doing it on Israel's soil. This God humbled me, but in doing so, he healed me. And I wasn't about to leave that God behind. Sometimes I wonder what would have become of me had I been too proud to follow Elijah's directions to wash myself in the Jordan. Or if I had demanded he accept my treasures before I would accept his healing. I found the one true God when he humbled me. He was not impressed by my power, my prestige, or my wealth. In fact, those things can actually lead us away from him. He loves to find us when we are sick, or struggling, or alone. He is drawn to the last, the least, and the lost. 850 years after he healed me, God humbled himself. First, by becoming a human being that toiled away in a peasant family. And ultimately, by being stripped of all of his clothes and executed on a Roman cross. He humbled himself to the point that the name of Jesus, every knee shall bend and tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So, if you want to follow this God, you don't get to do so from a place of honor or comfort. If he hasn't humbled you yet, he will. You will age, ail, lose things that you care about. You will fail, flounder, or falter. He'll allow or even cause you to struggle, not because he's cruel, but because he loves you. And he wants you to give up on your quest to save yourself. So tonight, I invite you to join me to walk hand in hand down into that dirty, muddy little river where a crucified God invites you to be humbled and healed. He will not accept any payments, bribes, or bartering, for you have nothing to offer him except for your sins and your shortcomings. He'll meet you there at the very bottom. I know he will. So this was the very first character I've ever played that did not speak directly to God in some form. And it was such a different person to look at for me. When I was first reading the script, I kept picturing this old, gruff guy, an old, grizzled Army veteran, and had earned his way to the top, obviously, and probably didn't think too much about the people that were serving under him or people that he interacted with on a daily basis, he didn't have to. He was the guy. It was the king, then him, and everybody else didn't really matter. And then the more and more that I was going through the script, I'm learning that, his wife that had been captured and given to him grew to care for him, that his king thought highly of him, that his servant made sure that he went through what he needed to go through to be healed. And obviously, this man had done something to endure himself upon these people, that they cared about him for something. And so instead of just thinking as this embattled, grizzled veteran, I looked at him as more of a, he's obviously a powerful person, but he treats people right, And so that became more and more of my character going along and saying, hey, this is a good person. Bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to people that have that power, that strength, And looking at it from that perspective, instead of just thinking, no, this is a guy that had everything given to him and didn't treat people well anyways and deserved it to happen. Yeah, I don't think he deserved it. I think it was something that happened to him even though he had these things. And so it was learning more of that perspective of him, which is really cool. I think people are going to love learning about him. I think there's so many lessons that we can all take away from this. It seems like in this day and age, we all strive to get that next better job, to get those awesome things for our house, the cool car, the cool boat, the bigger house, the more money, how fast can we retire? And we don't always think about what we need ourselves inside, spiritually, how we can grow as people. You see people fighting online, social media about this is right, this is right, this is right. Whether religion should matter anymore and what, how people can pervert that. When you break down a lot of the teachings of the Bible and of Jesus, it's how we treat each other, how we think about each other and treating each other right. And I think that Naaman had to learn that sometimes the hard ways, but he realized that a lot of it didn't matter if you had a bunch of money to give. If the cure doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. And so sometimes you have to be good to people. You have to be that better person and just trust that things are going to work out. One of my favorite lines is that, it doesn't matter what you have to bribe or barter. All you have to give when you're looking for healing is your sins and your shortcomings, and we all have them. And as long as we understand that and who we're eventually leading towards, we're going to get to the right spots.